4-year-old Lika didn't have much of a chance. The house she lived in with her dad and her grandmother in Gori was hit by a bomb. Where is your grandmother, we ask. In the hospital, Lika says, but her grandmother is dead. Lika is being treated in this hospital in Tbilisi. Her doctor says while her wounds are healing, the psychological trauma remains. She is not doing well psychologically, the doctor says. She can't sleep at night and she is always anxious. As fighting raged between Georgian forces and the Russian army, many were killed and wounded. Aid agencies say more than 100,000 people displaced. Griselda Abkhazova and her family fled from Skin Valley in southern Ossetia all the way to the center for the displaced in Tbilisi, after their house was damaged in the fighting. I want to be in my house, she says, even if the conditions are bad, even if I'm hungry, I don't belong here. A few clothes in plastic bags, that's all her family has left. Local residents brought clothes, the first time these people have received aid since the beginning of the conflict. Now, the international community is ramping up its aid efforts. The United States sent in 2 cargo planes with supplies, and relief agencies say they're expecting more aid flights soon. The Georgian government is beginning to set up camps like this one. Even though this tent city is still under construction, there are already people pouring in here. These children are looking to get some rest, and many of those that we talked to say they have been on the run for days. Relief agencies like UNICEF say they need more detailed information about the situation in the conflict areas.
I think people coming from the conflict-affected areas need to meet the basic family survival needs. This means hygiene, access to basic health services, water supplies, emergency water supplies, and nutritional supplies, particularly for very young children.
Little children like Lika, the smallest and most vulnerable victims in this conflict. Fred Plotkin, CNN, Tbilisi, Georgia.
ბედნიეროდ თამარი თავს კარგად გზნობს, ამას მარცხენა ხელში მოხვდა. ჭრილობა არ არის სერიოზული, ანუ ხელი მან მხოლოდ გაიკაწრა.
აი ამ წუთებში მე მომხვდა ტყვია, თუმცა ვარ გაკაწრული. აი თქვენ ხედავთ ახლა სავარაუდოდ ეს იყო სნაიპერი, იმიტომ რომ დღეს თელი დღის განმავლობაში ჩვენ ზურგს უკან იყვნენ სნაიპერები, თუმცა მე ვარ მხოლოდ გაკაწრული. სავარაუდოდ ეს იყო რაღაცა მსუბუქი იარაღი. მე ამ დროისთვის მეტი არაფრის თქმა არ შემილია, იმიტომ რომ ამ დროისთვის აქ არ ჩანს არავინ და ჩვენთვის უცნობია თუ ვინ მოახდინა გასროლა ჩემზე.
This is great. Stop killing! Putin, Satana! Putin, Satana! Putin, Satana! Putin, Satana!
On-again, off-again conflict in Georgia, smoke rises above the Georgian city of Gori. For it is these men, Russian soldiers who are firmly in control of the town. Despite diplomatic talks and promises of a ceasefire, the Russian military maintains firm control of this part of Georgian territory. The front line is fluid for what it is at all, but this is the forward line of Russian advance on a main artery leading to the Georgian capital of Tbilisi. Standing between these men and that capital is no more than a ragtag of a few columns of Georgian military. These troops and South Ossetian irregulars or paramilitaries are completely in control of this Georgian territory, severing the major artery between the capital and the seaport of Poti. It's clear that despite whatever talks are underway, with the arrival of US Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice expected tomorrow, that the conflict here in Georgia is far from over. Michael Ware, CNN, Gori.
The road to Gori, unstable and blocked by Russian tanks, now in their second day of occupation, 3 days after the Kremlin called a stop. And this is what it's like living under their watch. Russians were meant to be doing joint patrols with Georgians, but they stopped and searched a civilian car this morning. They found a weapon in the car, but the driver on the floor insists it's not his. Take off your shirt and shoes, they shout. I didn't shoot anyone, he insists. These Russian tactics very worrying here. They're conducted by troops from Chechnya, where just 6 years ago hundreds of civilians disappeared during military sweeps. Today, these 3 Georgians were driven away. They're not as tough on everyone. Here, a gunman, most likely part of the militia from South Ossetia, robs a cameraman. He points his gun at somebody filming. "Give me your camera, you idiot, or I'll kill you," he says. There's a shot over his head, and the cameraman falls to the ground. This scene on the volatile road to Gori happened under the noses of Russian troops. The United Nations were held at gunpoint, and a Canadian TV crew was carjacked. The Russian army completely unperturbed. Russians exhausted, some talking of heavy losses, but not in this unit.
I don't know, but we didn't lose anyone.
I didn't come here on holiday, but if I had, I'd have liked it.
This Russian soldier was for some reason in Georgian uniform, born just across the border.
For me, I am of course sorry for all of this.
But later there was the sound of gunfire, and the Russians seemed to be shelling the hill nearby. Well, both the Georgian and Russian troops are here, and they appear to be getting closer all the time. It is still incredibly unstable, so despite on this day there seeming to be a calm between both sides, we've just heard shelling on the hill behind me, so this region is still very much in flux. Scattered around the hills, and here, hiding in a forest, Georgians who fled roaming bands of gunmen. They came for the village near Gori of Karaleti that was yesterday almost completely burned.
All of the houses around mine were destroyed, and 3 of my neighbours were killed in 6 hours.
Feeling completely unprotected and sleeping on the bus that they fled in, or just under the sky. This woman yesterday fled the bombing.
I managed to escape with my grandchildren, but I don't know where my children are.
Stories of kidnapping, looting, and those who resisted the marauding South Ossetian gunmen were killed. Forgiveness and peace here, seemingly ever harder to find. Adding to this maelstrom, the presence today of 2 American aircraft on Georgian soil. Washington said it's just humanitarian aid for a beleaguered population, but Russian generals were quick to hint they might be bringing some sort of military help. Washington insisted today there'll be no new Cold War, no military intervention, but that won't stop Moscow seeing red when Condoleezza Rice arrives in Tbilisi tomorrow. Nick Payton-Walsh, Channel 4 News, Gori.